Stop what you're doing right now, because what I'm about to tell you will either transform how people see you forever, or you'll ignore it and spend the rest of your life wondering why others command respect while you're still explaining yourself. Right now, while you're watching this, someone is controlling an entire room without saying a word. Someone is commanding respect through stillness. Someone is wielding more influence through strategic silence than you've achieved with a lifetime of words. And here's what nobody wants you to know. The most dangerous people in any situation aren't the ones screaming for attention. They're the ones sitting quietly, watching everything, saying nothing, and controlling absolutely everyone. Niccolo Machiavelli understood this 500 years ago. He watched rulers fall because they talked too much. He saw empires crumble because leaders revealed their strategies. He witnessed betrayals that could have been prevented if people had just kept their mouths shut. Today, I'm going to show you why silence isn't just golden, it's lethal. Why the person who speaks least often holds the most power, and why mastering the art of strategic silence will give you an unfair advantage that most people will never understand. By the end of this video, you'll never see quiet people the same way again. You'll understand why your constant need to speak is destroying your influence, and you'll learn exactly how to use silence as the most devastating weapon in your arsenal. Before we begin, I need you to lock this declaration into your mind and drop it in the comments. My silence is my strength. My words are my weapons. Type it like you mean it, because from this moment forward, every word you speak will be a choice, not a reflex. Let me tell you about the moment everything changed for me. I was 26 years old, sitting in a boardroom with people who had decades more experience than me. I was terrified, convinced that if I didn't prove my worth through constant participation, they'd see me as the imposter I felt like. So I talked and talked and talked. I filled every pause with my opinions. I jumped into every conversation with my insights. I made sure everyone knew I was paying attention, contributing, adding value. I thought I was demonstrating competence. What I was actually doing was broadcasting my insecurity to everyone in that room. The CEO barely spoke during the entire 3-hour meeting, maybe 10 sentences total. But when he did speak, something remarkable happened. The room didn't just listen, it leaned forward. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. People took notes on his every word. That's when I understood the brutal truth. Your mouth is destroying your power. Every word you speak is information you're giving away for free. Every explanation you offer is a weakness you're advertising. Every time you fill an uncomfortable silence, you're telling the world that their comfort matters more than your authority. Think about the last meeting you attended. Who spoke the most? Now ask yourself, who actually had the most influence? I guarantee they're not the same person. The person who dominated the conversation probably felt productive, but the person who spoke strategically, who chose their moments with surgical precision, that's who people remembered, that's who people quoted afterward, that's who actually shaped the outcome. Machiavelli once said, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are." When you're constantly talking, you're making it too easy for people to figure you out. You're revealing your strategies, exposing your weaknesses, and handing your enemies exactly what they need to defeat you. But when you master silence, when you become comfortable with pauses that make others squirm, when you train yourself to observe instead of perform, you become unreadable, unpredictable, untouchable. Your constant need to speak isn't confidence, it's compensation for the power you don't have. Here's what most people completely miss about power dynamics. Silence creates psychological pressure that words never could. When you speak, you give people something to react to. You provide ammunition for counter-arguments. You create openings for others to challenge, dismiss, or ignore you. But when you remain silent, strategically, deliberately silent, you force others to fill that void. And in filling it, they reveal everything. I learned this lesson the hard way during a salary negotiation that should have been simple. I had prepared my entire pitch. Market research, comparable salaries, my contributions to the company, everything perfectly organized. I delivered my opening statement, laid out my case, and then made the critical mistake. I kept talking, I explained my reasoning, justified my request, filled every pause with more evidence, more explanations, more words. I thought I was being thorough. What I was actually doing was negotiating against myself. The hiring manager barely said anything, just nodded occasionally, let me ramble, and waited for me to talk myself into accepting less than I originally asked for, which is exactly what happened. 6 months later, I found myself in the same situation with a different company, but this time I did something different. I stated my number. Then I shut up. The silence that followed felt like it lasted an hour. It was probably 20 seconds. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to fill that void, to explain, to justify, to make them comfortable with my request. I didn't. I sat there, maintaining eye contact, completely comfortable in the discomfort I had created. And you know what happened? They met my number. No negotiation, no pushback. Because my silence communicated something my words never could. This isn't a discussion. This is the price. Silence forces others to negotiate with themselves while you remain unmoved. Machiavelli understood this principle perfectly. He wrote, "The lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten wolves. Silence is how you become both." It's the fox's cunning, observing, calculating, waiting for the perfect moment, and it's the lion's dominance, a presence so powerful it doesn't need to roar to command respect. When you speak constantly, you're just noise, but when you speak rarely, every word becomes an event. Think about the people who have the most influence in your life. Do they fill every silence with chatter? Do they feel compelled to have an opinion about everything? Do they explain themselves to everyone who questions them? Of course not. They speak when their words will have maximum impact. They remain silent when silence serves them better. They understand that in a world full of noise, the person who controls the quiet controls the conversation. The person who can sit comfortably in silence while others panic has already won. Now let me give you the framework that will transform how you use silence. These aren't theories. These are tested principles that have been weaponized by the most powerful people throughout history. Law 1. Never fill awkward silences. Awkward silences aren't awkward for everyone. They're only awkward for people who can't handle them. When a pause stretches uncomfortably long, most people panic and start talking just to relieve the tension. This is exactly what weak people do. When you fill an awkward silence, you're signaling that you're uncomfortable with your own presence. You're showing that you need constant validation through verbal interaction. You're advertising that silence makes you nervous. But here's what happens when you become comfortable with uncomfortable silences. People start projecting their own anxieties onto your quiet confidence. They begin wondering what you're thinking. They start questioning whether they said something wrong. They fill your silence with their own insecurities. And suddenly, you're not just another person in the conversation. You're the person everyone is trying to read, impress, and win over. The person who needs to fill every silence is the person being controlled by the room. Law 2. Let others reveal themselves. While everyone else is talking, you should be collecting intelligence. Every conversation is an opportunity to gather information about people's motivations, weaknesses, and strategies. But you can't collect intelligence when your mouth is moving. You can only gather it when you're listening, truly listening, not just waiting for your turn to speak. I once watched a negotiation where one side talked for 45 minutes straight, explaining their position, justifying their needs, revealing their constraints and deadlines. The other side said maybe 3 sentences the entire time. Guess who won that negotiation? When you're talking, you're giving away information. When you're silent, you're collecting it. Machiavelli once said, "Never attempt to win by force what can be won by deception." But deception doesn't always mean lying. Sometimes it just means letting others deceive themselves by talking too much while you listen strategically. Law 3. Use silence as punishment. This is the most ruthless application of silence, and it's devastatingly effective. When someone disrespects you, most people either explode in anger or try to explain why the disrespect was wrong. Both responses give the other person exactly what they want, a reaction. But when you respond to disrespect with complete silence, not angry silence, not hurt silence, just cold, calculated removal of your presence and attention, you create something far more powerful than any argument could achieve. You make them feel the weight of your absence. I had a colleague who constantly interrupted me in meetings, dismissed my ideas, and generally treated me like I was invisible. For months, I tried addressing it directly. I explained how it made me feel. I asked for more respect. Nothing changed. Then I stopped engaging with him entirely. Not rudely, not dramatically. I just stopped responding to his comments, stopped acknowledging his presence, stopped giving him any of my attention or energy. Within 2 weeks, he was asking mutual colleagues if he'd done something to offend me. Within a month, he was going out of his way to be respectful in meetings. I never said a word about the issue. I just removed the reward of my engagement. Your silence can punish more effectively than your words ever could. Law 4. Speak only to shift power. Every word you speak should be a strategic move, not an emotional reaction. Before you open your mouth, ask yourself, will speaking right now increase or decrease my power in this situation? If the answer is decrease or neutral, stay silent. Most people talk because they feel compelled to contribute, to be heard, to prove they're paying attention. But powerful people speak only when their words will fundamentally shift the dynamic in their favor. This means sometimes you let incorrect statements stand unchallenged. Sometimes you let others take credit for your ideas. Sometimes you let people think they're winning an argument you're not even having, because you're playing a longer game than they realize. Machiavelli once said, "The wise man does at once what the fool does finally." While fools are busy winning small verbal victories, wise people are building toward outcomes that actually matter. They save their words for moments when speaking will create irreversible shifts in power, perception, or positioning. If your words won't change the outcome, they're just noise. Law 5. Make your rare words carry impossible weight. When you speak rarely, your words automatically carry more weight. But you can amplify this effect by making sure that when you do speak, what you say is undeniable. This means speaking with absolute certainty, never hedging or qualifying, making statements instead of asking questions, offering insights that others haven't considered, providing solutions instead of just identifying problems. When you combine strategic silence with surgical precision in your speech, you become the person whose opinion shapes every decision, whose judgment is trusted implicitly, whose rare contributions are worth more than others' constant chatter. I once watched someone completely dominate a 3-hour strategy meeting with exactly 4 sentences. That's it. 4 carefully chosen interventions at critical moments when the conversation was stuck or heading in the wrong direction. Those 4 sentences shaped the entire company's direction for the next quarter. Meanwhile, people who spoke for hours had zero impact on the final decision. Your words should be so valuable that people wait for them, not so common that people ignore them. Now let me show you the truly Machiavellian applications of silence, the techniques that separate those who understand power from those who just play at it. Law enforcement has known this for decades. The best way to get someone to confess isn't through aggressive questioning, it's through strategic silence. When you ask someone a difficult question and then remain completely silent, no matter how long the pause, most people will eventually fill that silence with more information than you asked for. They'll start explaining, justifying, revealing things they never intended to share. This works in every context: job interviews, negotiations, confrontations, even casual conversations where you want to understand someone's true motivations. Ask your question, then shut up. Let the silence stretch until it becomes unbearable for them. Watch as they voluntarily give you everything you need to know. The person who speaks first after a difficult question is the person who loses control of the conversation. When you master silence, you become unpredictable. And unpredictability is power. People can't manipulate what they can't predict. They can't prepare for reactions they can't anticipate. They can't control someone whose responses don't follow expected patterns. Sometimes you respond immediately. Sometimes you take days. Sometimes you engage fully. Sometimes you withdraw completely. Sometimes you speak at length. Sometimes you say nothing at all. This unpredictability keeps everyone around you slightly off balance, never quite sure where they stand, always working a little harder to earn your attention, approval, or engagement. Machiavelli once said, "Since love and fear can hardly exist together, if we must choose between them, it is far safer to be feared than loved." But what's even more powerful than fear is uncertainty. When people don't know how you'll respond, they treat you with a caution that borders on reverence. Predictable people are controllable people. Unpredictable people are dangerous. Here's a technique that will change how you handle every difficult conversation. When someone is emotional, angry, upset, defensive, respond with complete calm silence. Not aggressive silence, not dismissive silence, just neutral, observing silence. What happens is remarkable. Your silence becomes a mirror that reflects their emotional state back at them. They see themselves losing control while you remain composed. They hear their own words echoing in the quiet you've created. They feel the contrast between their chaos and your calm, and almost always, they de-escalate themselves. I've used this technique in arguments that should have exploded into relationship-ending fights. Instead of matching their energy or trying to defend myself, I just stayed silent, maintained eye contact, remained completely calm. Within minutes, their anger transformed into embarrassment. They started apologizing for overreacting. They began explaining themselves to fill the silence I had created. I never had to say a word. My silence did all the work. Your calm silence in the face of someone else's chaos is the ultimate power move. Let me be brutally honest with you. Implementing these principles will be uncomfortable at first. Your entire life, you've been rewarded for speaking up, for participating, for filling silences. Now I'm telling you to do the opposite. Your instincts will fight you. Every fiber of your being will want to fill those awkward pauses, to explain yourself, to prove your worth through words. Resist. Because here's what happens when you commit to ruling with silence. Week 1. You'll feel awkward. People will ask if something's wrong. You'll question whether you're being rude or antisocial. Push through. This discomfort is your old programming dying. Week 2. People start noticing the change. They begin paying more attention when you do speak. They stop interrupting you as much. They start seeking your opinion more deliberately, instead of assuming they know what you think. Week 3. You notice you're learning things about people you never knew before. Because you're listening instead of performing, you're seeing patterns in behavior, spotting lies, recognizing opportunities that you completely missed when you were too busy talking. Week 4. The power shift becomes undeniable. People are deferring to your judgment more. Your rare words are being quoted and remembered. Others are competing for your attention instead of you competing for theirs. This isn't theory. This is the exact progression I experienced. And once you cross that threshold, once you become comfortable with strategic silence, you can never go back to being the person who needed constant verbal validation. Machiavelli once said, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." When you master silence, you control what people see. You choose what they experience. You decide when to reveal and when to conceal. You become the author of your own narrative instead of letting your loose tongue write a story you can't control. Let me give you specific scenarios where silence will give you an unfair advantage. Situation 1. When someone disrespects you, most people either explode or explain why the disrespect was wrong. Both responses give the other person power. Instead, look at them calmly, say nothing, let the silence stretch until they feel the weight of what they just said. Then simply disengage without explanation. Your silence communicates that they're not even worth a response. That's more devastating than any comeback. Situation 2. When you're asked to justify yourself. Whether it's your decisions, your boundaries, or your standards, the moment you start explaining yourself to people who haven't earned that explanation, you've already lost. Instead, state your position once. If they push for justification, simply repeat your position or remain silent. Your refusal to defend yourself communicates that your decisions aren't up for debate. Situation 3. When someone tries to provoke you. Provocations are tests. They want to see if they can make you lose control, reveal your weaknesses, or respond emotionally. Instead, remain completely calm and silent. Let them escalate while you stay still. Eventually, they'll look unhinged while you look composed. The contrast does all the work for you. Situation 4. When you're negotiating. The person who speaks first after stating their position usually loses. The person who fills silences with concessions definitely loses. Instead, state your terms, then shut up. Let the silence become unbearable for them. Watch as they negotiate against themselves, trying to fill that void. Situation 5. When you're being manipulated. Manipulators rely on your emotional reactions. They say things designed to make you defensive, guilty, or uncertain. Instead, recognize the manipulation. Then respond with silence. Don't defend, don't explain, don't engage with the bait. Your silence breaks their entire strategy. In every situation where someone expects you to speak, your silence becomes a weapon they never saw coming. Before you fully commit to this path, you need to understand something crucial. Not everyone will appreciate the new you. People who benefited from your constant availability, your eager explanations, your need to fill every silence, they're going to resist this change. They'll call you distant, arrogant, changed, and not in a good way. Let them. Because what they're really saying is, I preferred you when I could control you through your need for my approval. The people who matter, the ones who actually respect you, will appreciate your newfound self-control. They'll recognize that your silence comes from strength, not weakness. They'll understand that your rare words carry more weight than your constant chatter ever did. Machiavelli once said, "Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see and few can feel." Most people will judge your silence based on their own insecurities. They'll project their discomfort onto your calm. They'll interpret your strategic quiet as judgment of them. Good. Let them. The people who are threatened by your silence were never meant to be in your inner circle anyway. Let me end with the most important truth about silence. Your words are not your power. Your control over your words is your power. Anyone can talk. Anyone can fill silence with noise. Anyone can have opinions about everything and share them with everyone. But only the truly powerful can sit in complete silence while chaos erupts around them. Only the strategic can watch others reveal themselves while remaining unreadable. Only the dangerous can make their rare words reshape entire conversations. You've been taught your whole life that speaking up is strength, that silence is weakness, that the loudest voice wins. But now you know the truth. The loudest voice is just the most desperate for attention. The person who speaks constantly is just advertising their need for validation. The one who fills every silence is just showing their discomfort with their own presence. But you're different now. You understand that silence is not the absence of power, it's the presence of control. You recognize that words are weapons to be deployed strategically, not reflexively. You know that the person who speaks least often holds the most influence. Machiavelli once said, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." But here's what he really meant. It is better to be respected through strategic silence than to be ignored through constant noise. From this moment forward, every word you speak is a choice. Every silence you maintain is a strategy. Every pause you create is a power move. Stop filling awkward silences. Stop explaining yourself to people who haven't earned explanations. Stop speaking just to prove you're present. Start observing. Start collecting intelligence. Start making your rare words so valuable that people wait for them instead of talking over them. Rule with silence. Speak with power. Become untouchable. If this video changed how you think about power and influence, hit that like button. If you're ready to master the art of strategic silence, subscribe and turn on notifications. Drop this final declaration in the comments. I speak only to shift power. My silence is my strength. Remember, in a world full of noise, the person who controls the quiet controls everything. Now go forth and rule with silence.